In the 21st century, UFO hunters are armed with technology that allows them to record anomalies in the sky with incredible clarity. And today's technology can also glean new information from photographs taken decades ago. The Northern Highlands of Costa Rica, September 4th, 1971. Photographer Sergio Loiza is conducting an aerial survey of Lake Cote for the National Geographic Institute, using a special map-making camera that snaps photos at 13-second intervals.
He's up in an airplane about 10,000 feet. He's taking photos of a hydroelectric project, and they're trying to calculate the environmental impact of this. So he's just taking these ordinary photos, gets back to the lab, takes a look at the contact sheets and says, "What's that up in the right-hand corner there?" It's this mysterious, circular, shiny, metallic craft.
Curiously, the object does not appear in either the previous frame of film or the one after.
Instantly, the National Geographic Institute says, "You can't talk about this, and we're going to put a lid on this." And they do for some time.
According to Loiza, he and his colleagues were forbidden from divulging any information about the object captured in the photograph, which was estimated to be 160 feet in diameter. But in 1979, the photograph was leaked to the Argentine newspaper La Nación and analyzed by UFO researchers.
The photo is studied later by Jacques Vallée and other UFO investigators, and they realize this is a tremendous photograph.
This photo has been officially declared by Costa Rica as an official UFO photo. They don't know what it is after years and years of study.
Many skeptics suggested that the object was likely some kind of debris or smudge that got on the film during the development process. But in 2021, Esteban Carranza, a friend of the Loiza family, was able to obtain the original contact sheets and have them scanned using the latest and most sophisticated technology.
He gains access to the original contact sheets and sends them off to a photographic lab, and they do a reproduction of the image using the most advanced technology to bring it forward, and they come up with this 1.8 gigabyte image of this craft.
The debris and smudges that were visible in the original photograph are no longer present in the new higher resolution image, but the saucer-shaped object remains and is clearer than ever.
This higher definition scan showed some new details. These new details helped take a number of prosaic explanations off the table. For example, it was said that it could have been a chip in the glass. However, you can see that that's not the case.
This photo, in and of itself, in its original state, was tremendous. But now, with this incredible leap in technology, we're able to bring it to life in an even greater way. And it's just another example of this great leap that we're making now in our understanding of these UAPs.
London, England, March 19th, 2002. Shortly after 8 a.m., the National High-Tech Crime Unit arrives at the home of 36-year-old Scottish computer engineer Gary McKinnon. They are there to arrest him on behalf of the United States Justice Department for hacking into top-secret computers at NASA and the Pentagon. McKinnon not only admits to the crime, but claims he uncovered evidence that the U.S. government was working with extraterrestrial beings.
I was obsessed with UFOs. I was dying to find out the information. The internet was a real enabler for finding out information by going to places you shouldn't be in because they were so open. There were a lot of text files that had lists of places, installations, military bases, Air Force bases, Navy sites, NASA sites. So there was a lot to go through. But I did find a goldmine of information.
According to McKinnon, he unearthed a secret U.S. military program that existed entirely in space.
I found the spreadsheet was actually titled in the column non-terrestrial officers. As well as officers' names, it had ship names. None of these were ocean-going ships. It was astounding. They're not Navy, they're not in the Army, and not even Air Force. So to me, I was thinking there must be an off-planet Space Force, or Space Fleet, at least.
After McKinnon's arrest, he was told the U.S. government intended to sentence him to 70 years in prison.
At the time, I thought 6 months community service was all you'd do for a Computer Misuse Act in Britain. We fought extradition for 10 years, and we actually won the case. But unfortunately today, the arrest warrant is still live, and I'm still on the Interpol red list, so I can't travel.
Could it be that Gary McKinnon's account of what he saw when he hacked into computers at the Pentagon and NASA is genuine? Is the U.S. government engaged in secret operations beyond Earth?
I think Gary McKinnon is truthful in that he did see files on secret space programs and UFO-related material. Whether that information was legit or was just sitting there somewhere, we can't say. But there's no question that he did what he claimed to have done.
While there are many who question the authenticity of Gary McKinnon's account, other, more notable figures have since come forward with similar claims. In 2013, former Canadian Minister of National Defense, Paul Hellyer, declared that the United States government and other governments around the world are working with organized groups of extraterrestrials.
Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been visiting this planet for thousands of years. And there is what is called a federation of these people.
Paul Hellyer was a former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada and a former Minister of Defense of Canada. He was able to talk to a lot of important people within the US and Canadian system, and it was his opinion, based on the sources that he had, that there are many groups that are here visiting us.
Paul Hellyer is not the only government official to come forward with alleged knowledge of a federation of extraterrestrial races.
Recently, the former Israeli chief of space security, Haim Eshed, came out and said that there is a galactic federation and that indeed many world leaders know of and are in talks with delegates of the Galactic Federation. I don't know what to make of that claim, but when you have enough of them, a pattern emerges and it starts to take on a bit more gravitas in functioning as bona fide evidence.
Dr. Haim Eshed claimed that the extraterrestrials in this Galactic Federation were in contact with governments around the world. It's a fascinating idea and one that may well be true.
Should the sensational claims made by Paul Hellyer and Haim Eshed be believed, that close encounters of the fifth kind are occurring at the highest levels of government around the world, and with entire factions of extraterrestrial beings? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and argue that recent revelations from world leaders may be preparing mankind for a groundbreaking event. Full disclosure.
Historically, there has been a lot of UFO sightings around the Aleutian Islands, and there are 57 volcanoes throughout the Aleutian Islands. And it seems that some of these volcanoes have some very peculiar activity around them.
But east of the Aleutian Islands is a large area that has become even more notorious for strange phenomena. It is called the Alaska Triangle.
The Alaska Triangle is an area roughly between Anchorage, Juneau, and Barrow, Alaska, more or less running along the border of the Canadian territories and the state of Alaska.
The Alaska Triangle can be likened to the Bermuda Triangle, where really strange things happen, seemingly without explanation.
Within this region of anomalous activity stands Mount Hayes, one of Alaska's tallest peaks and a place where UFO sightings are reported with great frequency.
Many people have seen UFOs, flying saucers, strange lights flying in and around Mount Hayes. Now, there's no road that can go up there. The only way to get to Mount Hayes is to actually fly there, which most people don't do. So what are these craft that are flying around Mount Hayes?
For decades, eyewitness testimony was the only evidence to support the notion that Mount Hayes was a UFO hotspot. But in 1995, declassified documents revealed that Mount Hayes featured prominently in a top-secret government project called Stargate.
Researchers were looking through CIA documents and they found evidence of a project underneath Mount Hayes. And they say they saw written in these records that it was actually an alien underground base in this area.
Researchers were astounded to find a reference to an extraterrestrial base in official CIA documents. And just as intriguing is how this information was obtained. According to the declassified documents, the existence of an alien base beneath Mount Hayes was gleaned from a top-secret experimental investigation technique used by Project Stargate, a technique called remote viewing.
Remote viewing was used by the CIA all during the Cold War, and this is really a psychic projection technique where from one location, the remote viewer can look into a different place on the Earth's surface and is able to project his vision there and able to see what is going on.
Project Stargate had a specific purpose of using remote viewers, quite literally psychic spies, to find information on what the Soviets were up to.
The most famous remote viewer to come out of the Stargate project was a man named Pat Price. Price was the first to report what he believed to be an alien base under Mount Hayes.
He would sit down and draw what he sees, and he was deadly accurate on his predictions. One time, Pat Price remote viewed Mount Hayes and saw that there was structures that were under the mountain, tubes, tunnels, and he was intrigued by that, so he went deeper.
Pat Price saw within Mount Hayes what he described as geographical instrumentation. He saw computers. He also described these strange humanoid creatures that were within the mountain. And they were working alongside human personnel, which he believed were military personnel.
Price began to fear that he had seen something he wasn't supposed to see, and told friends that his remote viewing of the secret base under Mount Hayes had put him in grave danger.
In Las Vegas, just as he checked in to the Stardust, somebody deliberately bumped into him and he felt a sharp pain in his leg. And that evening, he started to feel unwell. And the following morning, he had convulsions and he died.
What's really strange about Pat Price's death is that the hospital didn't even notify the wife, and they had him cremated.
I think it is fair and reasonable to ask the question if Pat Price's mysterious death does not enter into a long lineage of similar tragic deaths of people that are whistleblowers or are stepping out of line and saying things they shouldn't say about things they have witnessed or know about.
Mali, Africa, 1931. French anthropologist Marcel Grioul treks through the forbidding desert in search of the mysterious Dogon tribe. When he finds them, he becomes fascinated by their culture and traditions. As Grioul starts collecting Dogon legends, he notices an eerie similarity to ancient tales found across the globe. Tales of amphibious gods, in this case called Nomo, who came from the sky, lived in the sea, and helped mankind.
They describe these nomos as being very like mermaid or merman-like, but bequeathing lots of knowledge of astronomy, math, and science to this ancient race.
The Dogon would say that the Nomo were these extraterrestrial gods, but they needed a watery environment to live in, though they could come on land.
Griol learns that their arrival is known as the Day of the Fish.
The Dogon actually said, well, this was our creator god, Namo, who descended from the sky in a loud whirlwind of a storm of thunder, smoke, and lightning.
But what struck Griol and shocked the world weren't the Dogon legends themselves, but where they said their amphibious gods came from. A star that no one on Earth knew existed until 1862, long after the Dogon claimed they knew of its existence.
In the 1930s, when French anthropologists were first discussing the Nomo with these Dogon priests, the Dogon priests said that the Nomo were coming from the star system of Sirius. Well, the French anthropologists were amazed at that and were confused as well.
According to the Dogon, their gods didn't come from Sirius A, a star that is clearly visible in the evening sky, but from its tiny companion, a dying star called Sirius B that can only be seen with advanced, high-powered telescopes.
Sirius A is the brightest star in the sky because it is very luminous and it is also fairly close to the Earth.
In astronomy, it is a known fact that there is a Sirius A and a Sirius B. Sirius A can be seen, and Sirius B, for us, is invisible because it's just too small. Now, the Dogon knew about the invisible companion star to Sirius. How did they know?
For thousands of years, Sirius A has played an outsized role in the imagination of Greeks, Persians, Hindus, Romans, Polynesians, and countless others. The Egyptians even based their calendar on Sirius A. And some believe they aligned the Giza pyramids to Orion's belt, which points to Sirius A.
Villages along the Nile and along the Euphrates and ancient Mesopotamia, they lined up their village dwellings to mimic the constellation in which Sirius sat.
Sirius is one of the closest stars to us. It's 8.6 light years away. Unlike the sun, which is beautiful golden color, Sirius is a bluish-white color, indicating it's much hotter than the surface of the sun. And that corresponds to it being more massive than the sun and burning hotter. It'll have a shorter lifespan.
But how could the Dogon have known about the existence of Sirius B? Could they have at one time been in possession of advanced technology? Or could there be another, even more profound explanation?
The Dogon had an amazing degree of knowledge about the Sirius system. They knew that the orbits of the two stars were about 50 years, period, and that the invisible star was very dense and past its prime. They also knew that the brighter one was a larger star than the sun.
The Dogon also knew that Sirius B is about the size of Earth and spins on its axis.
There is no logical explanation for why the Dogon tribe knew about the Sirius star system naturally. We didn't have telescopes in those days. How did they know this? It's as if an ET came here and just told them all about that. It's an amazing story.
One theory is maybe the aliens gave them this knowledge. It can't be ruled out. That's one possibility, because they got it right on the dot.
But if a race of amphibious Nomo came from Sirius B and gave the Dogon such gifts of knowledge, did they only visit this one desert tribe? Or did they visit other peoples in other lands?
It would be one thing if there's only one legend of a fishman worldwide. But the Namo is one story of dozens of amphibious bringers of knowledge to our ancestors. The ancient Hindus talk about this, the ancient Greeks, they all had these fish people that during the day taught mankind, and then at night they wandered back into the ocean to just emerge the next day.
Sindh Province, Pakistan, 1922. An officer of the Archaeological Survey of India is led by a Buddhist monk to an area believed to have been a religious monument. But under the mounds of dirt, archaeologists find instead an ancient Indus Valley city dating back to 2000 BC. It is called Mohenjo-Daro, or Mound of the Dead, and it is one of the oldest civilizations discovered in the world.
Mohenjo-Daro was very advanced for that time. They had sanitation, they had all kinds of good things going, and they had a lot of trade going with Mesopotamia.
The city of Mohenjo-Daro rivaled the ancient civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia. Archaeologists believe that over 35,000 people once occupied the city. However, only 43 skeletons have been discovered at the site. There are many theories surrounding the mysterious disappearance of the Indus people from Mohenjo-Daro. In 1977, British researcher David Davenport discovered that part of the archaeological site showed evidence of having been destroyed by an extremely powerful explosion.
He found what remains of the blast. And he believed that this area was the epicenter of something that he believed was an explosion that destroyed a part of the city. And he found the evidence of vitrified pottery, bricks that were totally fused, melted, or vitrified.
Scholars claim that several calcified skeletons found at the site suggest they suffered an instantaneous death.
In Mohenjo-Daro, they found bodies, arm in arm, skeletons, arm in arm, that had been vitrified, virtually vitrified.
For years, restricted access to the site has prevented scientists from analyzing the vitrified ruins. But in 2014, mineralogist Dr. Sam Iyengar was able to obtain a piece of fused pottery from Mohenjo-Daro and put it through a series of tests.
When I did the elemental analysis, it showed me that the Mohenjo-Daro rock contained mostly silicon, aluminum with some calcium and potassium. So my thought was maybe it could be some type of a clay, till I did the X-ray diffraction.
X-ray diffraction is able to determine exactly how a material was formed.
When I did the X-ray powder diffraction, this is the pattern I got. And you can see some crystalline peaks here along with an amorphous hump, which usually results from a glassy phase in the rock. The composition is very similar to volcanic rock. The only way the clay can be converted into something which we saw is subjecting the clay to a very, very high temperature. I'm talking 4,000 to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not something an early civilization can do intentionally. It has to be something supernatural.
Could this pottery sample, which shows irrefutable evidence of having been subjected to extreme heat, be definitive evidence that Mohenjo-Daro really was the site of some type of powerful explosion in the ancient past? David Davenport and other researchers of India's ancient Vedic texts have suggested that this is the case, and that Mohenjo-Daro may in fact be the kingdom of Lanka, a city whose destruction is detailed in the Indian epic known as the Ramayana. In the Ramayana, it is described that the god Vishnu decides the leader of Lanka, a mortal named Ravana, has grown too powerful. Vishnu takes the human form of Rama and does battle with Ravana, who has become like the gods himself.
Ravana was a very formidable enemy. In fact, most of his power, it was acquired from God Shiva himself, because he was a great devotee of Shiva. And Shiva gave him lethal weapons.
During the battle between Rama and Ravana, they used particular weapons of energy, weapons of the gods. They have a very big power of destruction.
It was described as the sun turning into 50 even more brighter suns with this incredible blast. So some people have suggested that perhaps at Mohenjo-Daro some type of a nuclear blast occurred. Not only do we have a textual reference to a possible nuclear blast, but we also find physical evidence that show vitrification of stone. And the only way that stone can be vitrified is if it's exposed to extreme heat.
This is not mythology, this is not superstition, this is documented historical events of people that are warring with each other using advanced technology.
I happen to believe that mankind possessed incredible technology, incredible knowledge, and that they did things that we're doing right now, and then something happened. And they had to literally start all over again.